Let's say our blessing together.
Baruch
Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praise to you, Lord God, rule the universe, who's made us holy with your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves with the words of Torah. And with that, we're going to dive into the beginning of chapter 4. Gabriel, would you please read?
Sure. Ben Zoma said, "Who is wise? One who learns from every person. As it is said, from all who taught me have I gained understanding." Psalms 119:99. Who is mighty? One who subdues their evil inclination. As it is said, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that rules his spirit than he that takes a city. Proverbs 16:3. Who is rich? One who rejoices in their portion. As it is said, you shall enjoy the fruit of your labors, you shall be happy, you shall prosper. Psalms 128:2. You shall be happy in this world, and you shall prosper in the world to come. Who is honored? He who honors their fellow human beings. As it is said, for I honored those that honor me, but those who spurn me shall be dishonored. 1 Samuel 2:30. Continue with this?
Yes, please.
Okay. Biography. This chapter mostly contains sayings of rabbis who lived at the same time as Rabbi Judah Hanassi, around 200 CE, and or were students of Rabbi Akiva. Ben Zoma's full name is Shimon ben Zoma, but he is frequently called Ben Zoma. His teacher was Rabbi Joshua ben Hananiah, and he overlapped with Rabbi Akiva, most active around 110 to 135 CE. Ben Zoma was well known for his wisdom, and it was said that seeing him in one's dreams was an omen for becoming wise, Rochot 57b. Ben Zoma was also such a good sermon giver that when he died, it was said that the last of the great sermon givers had passed away, Sotah 49a. There is a story that Ben Zoma and 3 other rabbis entered Pardes. Ben Azai died, Ben Zoma lost his mind, and Elisha ben Abuya became an apostate, and Rabbi Akiva was fine. Gershom Sholem, a 20th century scholar of Jewish mysticism, interprets Pardes to be Gnosticism, which was part of a Greek philosophy, Chagiga 14b. How are these sayings relevant to our lives today?
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, so here's the entirety of the sayings again. How is it relevant to our lives today?
Feels a little like the Seder.
Can you say more?
Well, just the wise son and the not so wise son, and just
And a set of 4.
yeah.
You know what? Since Ben Zoma said, "Who is wise? One who learns from every person, and one word learn wisdom from an evil person."
Yes.
You can learn how not to behave. I think as you mature, it's helpful or necessary to observe your world and begin to sift out who teaches you, who has helped you along the way, who has guided you, learning what's good, what's toxic. I mean, as you get older, and I think you get wiser whether you want to or not, because of experiences. So kind of all of it kind of just falls into the same category for me. You could say I just feel that as you go along in life, with age comes wisdom. Is that what I'm trying to say? I don't know that it's necessarily wise, but it's what you know. It's what guides you. It may not all be good, but it's what guides you. And you may think you're rich in what you have, but it may not be another person's criteria for what makes them rich. So. It's your own perspective, I think.
So let's break this down. The who is wise, one who earns from every person. All right, how is that relevant to our lives today?
I don't think you're so smart and you know everything. That everybody has something to offer to you. If you pay attention, you'll learn from other people.
Yet the last one, who was honored, kind of contradicts that first one. When it says, "I honor those who honor me, but those who spurn me shall be dishonored," meaning I probably couldn't learn anything from them.
All right. So is the first one and the last one in contradiction? Who is wise versus who is honored?
Does a wise person set someone else up like that? As is in the bottom one. You know, if you agree with me, I like you, but if you don't agree with me, I don't. Does a wise person do that? Somebody? Or does a wise person make an educated choice about how he feels? Maybe not that not that he would spurn someone. He just may not. He may not. Well, I guess it is. It is a little hard to put it in words, but.
And what does it mean to be honored? What is it that makes one honored or dishonored? Is it the behavior? Is it something they said? Is it are they not wise enough? Do they have the evil inclination up front? What conditions require honor and would cause you to spurn on?
Well, it seems with the evil inclination, at least, that it's not necessarily connected to being wise or being honored, because in the second line of text, it says, "Who is mighty, one who subdues their evil inclination." So it seems to be, the evil inclination seems to be disconnected from the question of wisdom or honor, at least somewhat. Of course, possibly not entirely, because you could say that it's important to know yourself. And so if you know you have this evil inclination, know how to control it, know how to best it, you could, that would be part of it in that sense. But it seems, at least within this text, that they're treating wisdom and honor as separate from the evil inclination.
I would say that in the first teaching, learning from every person, and every person, you think of the rabbis as very hierarchical minded and aristocratic in their sensibility often. And in this, and here there's something that in a somewhat anachronistic way we could call democratic. You can learn from every person. we can take something of value from every person. It might be a counter example, but it might be something else. It's not a question necessarily of that person's standing. And then so at the end, it says, who is honored? I honor those that honor me. That's a God talking. So presumably God has the right judgments and expects honor, but that's not for us. We are to honor our fellow human beings. Just as we are to find value in them and learn from them.
Let's take on who is mighty, one who subdues their evil inclination. How is that relevant to our lives today?
It's really a, though there's a biblical text to prove it, it's really a kind of a stoical observation. It's all a matter of self-control. That's when you have, when you have, see what the word is, you have this might. Is it gibor? Is that the word here?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that. You want to be the macho guy with, you want to be the gibor, happy gibor, be that tough guy. The real way of being that is to master yourself. And that has relevance. That just has general relevance in every age, I should say.
Let's look at who is rich, one who rejoices in their portion. Do you agree?
How do you define portion? Is portion the monetary wealth that you have? Is portion the number of children that you have? Is portion the number of friends that you have? What does he mean by portion here?
It means rejoices in their lot, in their situation.
Right. What you got.
Not a specific amount of dollars or stuff, but what your situation is. If you're healthy and you've got love around and you have work that you're satisfied with and supplies your needs, and you are grateful, then that's
So
rich.
it incorporates everything.
Right. But that's what your lot is, everything.
Yeah, your lot in life, right.
In life, or the cards that you're dealt, as it were.
I agree with Carol. The one who's satisfied with his lot in life.
I think we're making it a little too easy because it's if you have all those things, then and you're not satisfied, or you're not happy, and you're not rejoicing in your lot, then that's almost a pitiable thing. It's being able to rejoice in your lot when your lot is not is when the cards haven't cut your way, when you're miserable and in pain. That's when it takes a great self-control, or I'm not sure what, but it's it's not the ordinary view. People can transform their thinking, but if they want to be straight with themselves, they're going to have, it's going to be very difficult to rejoice in that lot unless they feel they deserve it. So I think it's quite interesting and problematic in that way.
Well, maybe that person isn't rich then. At least
Instead of saying rejoices, I think I prefer to say acceptance
Mhm.
of what you have in your life, because that includes things that are not great, things that are great. We all have both of that. And just if you can accept things that happen day to day and be grateful for what you do have, then you're rich. But we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. The fortune could change. We could still accept it if we're open and we're able to receive and deal with and cope with whatever comes up.
I wonder then, as a fusion of both that perspective and also Phil's, would just be that the rabbis are hinting at, or specifically Ben Zoma is hinting at, this sort of richness is being defined as just submission to God as things have been laid out to you. And I wonder if that, so that general sentiment, at least in this time period, could be corroborated by, if you look at the end of Birkat Hamazon, how it's talking about, I think that, I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but the end of the ending paragraph is talking about how, oh, I've not seen the children of the righteous begging for bread, something along those lines. I wonder if there's a connection between this perspective and that, as a sort of general take from this time period, maybe.
Maybe. Can you tell me more about how that might be connected?
Well, if a person who is rich is one who is rejoicing in their portion, whatever has been allotted to them, I wonder if that the connection I had with Birkat Hamazon at the end of that, with that paragraph I referenced, is talking about, I guess, the relationship between what you have and your piety or righteousness level to some degree. And so I wonder if they're just connected in that sort of general idea, accepting your lot as whatever is been given to you by God for one reason or another. That's what I thought was sort of being alluded to here, but maybe that's not. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see how you could find relevance insofar as it talks about people who are pious, or the children of people who are pious,
Mm-hmm.
and it talks about begging for bread, and how this seems to suggest a situation that might not have happened, where people who are pious don't beg for bread or don't feel like they need to beg for bread.
Mm-hmm.
My take on that verse, or that piece of Birkat Hamazon, is that this is aspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you read it as descriptive instead of prescriptive, then it seems to insinuate that anybody who is poor deserves it because they're not pious enough.
Right.
So with that, I'm sure it's possible to draw a connection, but I would be careful about drawing a connection without having made that clear.
Sure. Yeah. I understand that. Yeah. I just meant as like a general sort of just alignment in worldview
Mhm.
between the two pieces of text.
Yeah.
Of course, with what you mentioned in mind. Thank you for the
Mhm.
clarification.
Yep.
The man who lives in a refrigerator box gets a meal a day from a local bread line and has a bottle of wine every day and is content. Would you consider him to be rich?
That question's open for anybody.
Liver might not be rich, but I mean, his health, if it, how good is his health?
He's more surviving.
Yeah, right.
And in
So,
his mind, is he any less rich than perhaps we are currently in our minds?
so maybe being rich is, I guess what it says in there is how you look at your own situation. Maybe he doesn't have high expectations like someone else might of what encompasses a good life, a productive life, a life that is filled with rewards for good deeds. I mean, he may have many lower expectations, and so therefore he considers himself rich because that's all he expects. So,
And we say that another person is rich, or is it for that person to define whether he feels rich or not? I can look at a friend who I felt was rich in many ways and didn't feel that she was rich because she felt there were people who had more than she did. So she wasn't happy.
yeah, well,
It wasn't, so what my view of her was one thing, but her view of herself was something else.
She wasn't rejoicing in her portion, right, Naomi?
Exactly.
So David, and all four of these, is it the person who feels himself or herself this way? Or is it who the outside world feels about?
I think just like the classic understanding of wealth or richness as having to do with money, you might define yourself as, well, let's start with others. Others might see you as rich, but you might not feel like you are rich, either because you have an awareness of expenses that other people don't realize, or because you have desires that other people don't realize. So how you view yourself with your financial situation, how others view you with your financial situation are different. Similarly, somebody could look at somebody else on all four of these categories and say, oh, that is a wise person, that is a mighty person, that is a rich person, that is an honored person. And that may or may not align with how the person views themselves against these metrics.
I understand there are people in this world who are monetarily much richer than all of us put together, but who still work hard to even make more money for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in that case, they don't feel rich, apparently.
It could be. Or it could be that to give them the benefit of the doubt, per Rabbi Joshua in Pirkei Avot 1:6, that perhaps some of them enjoy what they are doing and would do it regardless of their financial situation.
Does it matter at all how what they do to gain all that affects other people?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I don't know that that matters for the metric of rejoicing in their portion, but it probably matters in other judgments on that person, or that that person might want to make about themselves and what they're choosing to do. Although, as I think about it more, if they feel like what they are doing is helping people, that might help them rejoice in their portion.
Looking at the last one, if this is God asking who is honored, if the rich person doesn't include honoring God in his life, is he still rich? No matter how much he has? Or is that too abstract to think about? I mean, does honoring God and being part of a synagogue community and doing mitzvot and following commandments, does that also make you rich, or can you be rich without that in your life? Because the rest of your life, in your opinion, is meeting the standards that you've set for yourself based on what you've learned from every other person who teaches you to be wise.
Carol's question is a good one. I think, Carol, what you're asking is, if you don't have synagogue community and relationship with God and relationship with mitzvot, are you still rich? Is that your question?
Well, yeah. I mean, can you be such a chacham that you think, what you've done is all on your own and there's no larger being, community, world, whatever you want to look, where we live. If there's not, if you're not giving any credit to any of the other things that influence you, whether you think they do or not, and you just think that you've done it all on your own and you're happy with that, in your mind you might be rich, but do we consider that person rich? I mean, you can twist these in any way you like, but that just comes to mind. So.
As Ben Bug said and we'll get to it at some point, turn it and turn it again, for everything is in it. And he was talking about the Torah, but this is considered oral Torah. So for 1800 years, Jews have been turning and turning Pirkei Avot again and again. And what we're doing is continuing that chain of tradition.
David, this may sound like a very ridiculous question, but I just don't know what the answer to it is. It says, and you shall prosper in the world to come. How does one prosper in the world to come? I don't understand that.
Good question.
Yeah, I think that is the rabbi's, Ben Zoma will attribute it to. That's Ben Zoma looking at this verse from Psalms and saying, why does it need to say you shall be happy and you shall prosper? if it said you shall prosper, wouldn't that have encompassed you shall be happy? And so he says, well, the Torah and the rest of the Bible doesn't use words unnecessarily, so these must mean two different things. And as is frequently the case, one of those things is in this world, and the other thing is in the world to come, after you have died. So I don't so although I see it as, I see, particularly given the English syntax here and the punctuation, how it looks like you shall prosper in the world to come is what it's saying. It's probably, it would be better served with a dash between happy and in, and prosper and in.
Prosper in the world to come might be that you shall enter the world to come. Not prospering in the world to come means very well that you may not enter the world to come.
Mm.
And can in the world to come mean you'll be remembered if you were a good person who did all the things that made you rich? That the way you'll prosper in the world to come is that people will remember you as a good soul, will say Kaddish for you, and will honor your memory, and because that's what comes after we're gone.
Absolutely.
I don't know why all this is triggering so much in me tonight. Usually I don't have much to say, but there's a lot in here.
May I say, David, I thought you were right. My saying it's that it's nothing really, but interpreting the verse or that Ben Zoma is explaining the verse, because God forbid that we should have redundancy in our sacred text, and it's the same thing. I think I don't have the Haggadah in front of me, and I'm not quick enough to find it. Where isn't it? Until Ben Zoma explained it to me, where he says, "Call Yemei Chayecha." What all the days of your life? Maybe people probably remember that, where he says, that's why it says all the days of your life, because it includes the world to come. He finds that in different places. That's what it reminds me of. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Let's take on the last one. Who is honored? One who honors their fellow human beings. Agreed? Do we see that playing out today? Should it play out today?
I'm not too sure we do, because there is one person who has not honored very many people, but expects to be honored by everybody else. And there are some people who still honor that person.
Okay.
Not to mention names.
To play devil's advocate here, one could say that some people feel like they have been honored by that person, and so that is why they are returning the honor. Other thoughts about this last one? Who is honored? One who honors their fellow human beings.
Would you replace the word honor with respect? I think that makes it easier to understand.
Maybe. Let's look at the text. Ezehu mechubad. So mechubad has the same root as kavod, and kavod is respect. So yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But do we necessarily disrespect people who do not respect us or who we don't feel respect us? I'm not so sure that follows.
The word me is capitalized, so I believe that's referring to God rather than us.
But the first part of that refers to people specifically. Doesn't
Right.
refer.
The first line, right.
That's right. And so the mutual respectfulness, if you will, would apply to people just as much as it would apply to God.
Except those who spurn me shall be dishonored. If that's God, it's more powerful than a person who isn't respected. I don't know then if that other person will get disrespected or dishonored, disrespected.
No disrespect intended to you, but I'm feeling that Pirkei Avot is for our benefit at this point, not for God's benefit.
So let's flip this one and put it in the negative. Who is not honored or who is not respected? One who does not respect their fellow human beings. Does this hold true?
It makes more sense. That seems to make a little more sense. If you switch it like that.
Would agree.
And that's like the saying, what goes around comes around. If you treat somebody poorly, it's going to come back on you. So that would be how that person would not be respected.
I think it might be chapter 1, maybe, of Pirkei Avot, but somewhere, either in chapter 1 or chapter 2, I think, Hillel has a saying where he sees a skull floating in a stream, and he talks to the skull and says, because you drowned others, you have been drowned. And in the end, those who drowned you will also be drowned. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that idea connects to Ben Zoma saying, although it is easier to see in the negative.
To the extent that we honor someone who doesn't honor us, to touch on, I think it was Herb's point, which I'll also try to be delicate about. If we have people who honor someone who holds them in contempt, then they're servile, and it's a very sad state of affairs. It may be a fact, but this is not a descriptive text. This is a text telling us, making an argument about how we should see things and how we ought to value things and people.
Is there a middle ground between respect and disrespect?
It's probably relative to the crime, if you will, for lack of a better word. if it's a slight injustice, it's going to have less of a reaction than if it's a terrible injustice. So there would be a spectrum there, perhaps.
Or a person, are you disrespecting them as opposed to not respecting them? As opposed to respecting.
Semantics.
This makes me think about passing people on the sidewalk. If I passed somebody on the sidewalk, it clearly looks different if I'm respecting that person versus if I'm disrespecting that person. But if I just say hello to that person, is that already respect, or is that like, is there a spectrum of respect, I guess? Like, if I haven't gone out of my way to show great respect to them, but I've said hello. I guess that's a question that Herb's getting at, is it you are either on one side or on the other, or does respecting someone require like great effort?
If on a busy day, you are walking in downtown Chicago and you pass 10 people in 10 seconds, you say hello to each one of them. And if you don't, then what? Is that showing disrespect?
And does it depend partly on whether or not they're expecting to be greeted?
I guess I'm thinking of strangers.
Yeah, I was going to say, this has more to do, I think, with people with whom you have a relationship, whether it's a friendship or working relationship or whatever, that the degree to which the relationship involves your life and your respect or mutual relationship with another person. I don't think just walking down the street and saying hello, I mean, it shows respect for the fact that the person is another person, just being friendly, but I don't think it goes any deeper than that.
This walking down the street scenario, I think, has very little to do with respect. I think it's just a question of acknowledging the presence of another human being.
Yeah, that's
it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think in order to respect someone, you have to know them, and you don't really know the person you greet on the street. I mean, you have to respect another person for being a person, but your own feelings of respect have to be formed when you actually know a person and they know you, I think.
What does it look like to honor a fellow human being?
Repeat that, please, David.
Yeah, what does it look like to honor a fellow human being?
Well, I remember the TV roast that they used to have for celebrities.
If you're comparing honor and respect as that fourth one, I think honor is a whole category of something above respect. I was by David's grandma and grandpa to respect everybody, but only particularly to honor somebody who was worthy of being honored. Everybody was worthy of being respected, but not everybody was necessarily worthy of being equally honored.
Answer, could you give some kind of an example to show a line of demarcation?
Let's say in a very, very small congregation in where I grew up in northern Minnesota, the once a month circuit riding visiting rabbi was honored, and some of the more liturgically and ritually capable elder lay people were honored. But woe betide the kid growing up in that synagogue who wasn't very respectful to all the adults, and at least in front of them respectful to all the rest of the kids too. So the visiting rabbi and the elders who knew their stuff ritually earned the honor simply because they were able to keep the place together religiously, functionally, ritually. But the concept of respect, maybe it's partly because I grew up in this hard scrabble iron mining town that was like a United Nations. The men working in the mines came from every corner of Europe only a couple generations earlier. And the only way the town could hold itself together was if people basically respected each other simply because they were fellow people.
Thank you.
When I think of honoring someone, I think of someone who has done something above and beyond what the average person whom I would respect as being a person has done. Somebody who has achieved a level of humanity or generosity or education that exceeds what the average person does would receive my honor. I would honor them in terms of how I would relate to them, or think of them, or maybe stand when I'm in their presence. That's how I think of honor. I think of it as a very high level of more than respect, and different from what we would do with our fellow human beings. We would respect them, but honor is a whole other category. For me, it's very high up.
Like I remember when Rabbi Merriman retired, we honored him for his years of service. And that was definitely different than just having respected him all those years, gave him special accolades and gifts.
Okay, last thoughts about anything in this text, how it's relevant to our lives today.
There's a lot to talk about.
A lot of factors. There's a lot of ways to look at each,
Right. Things to think about.
and none of them are really wrong. So it's interesting.
Why were these not separated into 4 different items in Pirkei Avot instead of lumped together?
Good question.
Usually Pirkei Avot works that each rabbi gets one like set of their top sayings. Sometimes in the numbering system that Safari uses, sometimes they will lump together 2 rabbis in one. But unless you are a rabbi on the level of Hillel or Akiba, usually you only get one Mishnah, and you have to put all your sayings into that Mishnah. You're like your top 3 or 4 sayings into that Mishnah.
That is an example of honoring Hillel and Rabbi Akiva beyond disrespecting.
Exactly. All the rabbis got respected by getting into Pirkei Avot, and a few of them got honored by getting multiple sayings or multiple Mishnayot within it.